Welcome to another episode of Simon Says, where facts come first. I'm your host, Jenny Simon. Grab your popcorn, your beverage or drink of choice, cup of coffee, maybe a cup of tea. Don't forget the Kool-Aids for the kids. Call your mama and your papa, your grandmama and your grandpapa, your brothers and your sisters, your nieces and your nephews, your auntie, your nenen, your neighbors and your friends. Let them know that Simon Says is on. Buckle up. We'll be right back. Thank you for tuning in to Simon Says. To ensure that you never miss an episode, click subscribe and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell icon. See you at the next episode. Welcome back. Welcome back. Now, I didn't mean to, but after I saw what happened last night in New York in the government town hall, right? We were told that they were going to introduce, so to speak, Project Polaris to the diaspora. And it begs a lot of questions. Who paid for the trip? Is the government of Grenada paid for the trip? The entourage was there as usual. The chief of staff, the executive secretary, cameraman, everybody, plus others, the junior minister of culture and tourism, the mouthpiece. I mean, everybody was there, and something troubling happened. But I want to remind you, lest you forget, of a town hall that was held in Toronto in I believe it was 2025, very early 2025. But let's take a look at the clip.
Hold on. Well,
take questions afterwards.
well, that's all right. In politics, you have to deal with that. So first, good evening, sir.
My name is Trevor David.
Right, so,
You know what?
well, you will get the opportunity. And
You know what?
never assume that I know what you're
Well,
talking
man,
about.
said you fool some of the people some of the time, you can't fool them all.
So I'm happy to give you the mic to ask a question so that I can answer so we can get this over with and then we can continue. So if there's a mic, is there a mic? No, you interrupted, so I'm giving you the opportunity to ask the question. No.
Yes, sir. In a well-mannered way, you may ask a question.
It only takes so much force to do it. Every man is standing in front of us today.
Okay, one moment, please. Everyone get quiet. Sir, the Prime Minister is offering you an opportunity to ask your question. Please ask your question.
Mr. Prime Minister, why are you saying that while you and your government is blocking a $15 million US project to create 250 jobs in Carriacou for the last 2 years? And you know exactly what I'm talking about. Right? You know exactly.
So first of all, I actually don't know what you're talking about, so perhaps if you can... So for the benefit of myself and everyone here, and particularly the people of Carrickon Peace Market, and particularly MP for Carrickon Peace Market, you can all right, so thank you. You got the opportunity to, gentlemen, you got the opportunity to ask your question. I've answered, and I think I've answered.
I'm assuming this is real, but this is the same thing that David from
All right, so thank you, everyone. Thank you. I will continue with my presentation.
Well, some of us thought that might have been a one-off, but it seems like it's in their DNA. On Sunday, the 17th of May, 2026, that's just now, Sunday, the beginning of this week. In this modern days, there was a repeat. Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, this time hosted a town hall meeting in Brooklyn, New York. Same memo. That one, the gentleman was actually taken out of the town hall. He was escorted out of the town hall in Toronto, and I don't think they were going to be that brave to try and escort this one out. He was able to go back and take his seats, not without flinging of hands and booing and gesticulating and we're talking here, friends, about grown folks, adults. I don't even think I saw someone in there that you probably could have called a youth. Maybe there was, but generally when you look, you saw older people, quite a few senior citizens, right, in that audience. And the gentleman went up to ask a question, joined the queue, and when his turn came, this is what happened.
Yes, sir, go ahead, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Prime Minister. I hope New Yorkers are treating you well. From all looks, I can see that they're treating you well.
You're treating me well, yes.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, Ms. Andrew San Bernard, I noticed that you've touted the expertise of Perkins and Wills. So I just wanted to ask something that had me really concerned, that in the receipt of a concept plan by the administration, which represents 15%, a little under 15% of the complete architectural plans that are required for construction, that you initiated a groundbreaking. So I would like, I guess Ms. Pat can chime in on that. I would like to try to understand, why would you initiate a groundbreaking which actually signals the start of construction when you have a full set of architectural plans at a concept phase? And I will also, some of us are familiar with the numbers. So we know that the full architectural plan costs 50 million. 50 million.
All right, guys, all right.
Slow down,
guys, hold on.
Slow down. This is not a communist outfit. This is not a communist outfit. This is the United States of America, where the First Amendment reigns supreme.
All right, guys. All right.
Have
All
a
right.
little
All right.
respect for your prime minister.
All right, guys.
Have a little respect for your prime minister. Please. Slow down, cowboys and cowgirls. Have a little respect for your prime minister. Don't be disgraceful. Please.
All right, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Please, he's entitled to ask the question, so let him finish and then we'll respond to the question.
As I was saying before, I was rudely interrupted. Okay, so wait. Again, as I have said, this is not a communist outfit.
Sir.
This is the United States of America.
Hello, sir.
I'm happy to answer.
All right.
Thank
Let's
you.
continue directing the question to the panel,
Okay.
please. Thank you.
Again, to the panel.
Right. So, thank you.
I have the second part to the question. That we noticed that $22 million was expended so far. Some of us are very familiar with the numbers on this project. So we know that a full architectural plan costs about $50 million, but you've expended $22 million thus far. So we're trying to, we would like you to explain what that $22 million was expended on. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Okay, so thank you.
All right, guys. All right. Guys, thank you. We need to answer the question. Go ahead.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. I thank you for the question. I am going to take the first one, which is groundbreaking. Absolutely, we have a lot more work to do. We are still in the process of creating designs, but we also have a very aggressive timeline to work on. And so there are going to be several work streams that have to continue simultaneously. We have sufficient plans to allow us to begin doing early works. And in that regard, we are beginning and have already begun construction, the early works, the site prep, the utilities preparation, significant excavation. All of this work has to be done before we get to main construction works. And all of this work is underway. And so we thought a groundbreaking ceremony made sense to make sure the transparency to the people of Grenada that work on the site has begun. As regards to the question of the money spent, we are building a large, sophisticated infrastructural plan. A lot of plans have to go into that. A lot of experts, consultants, partners have to come with us to be able to put together the necessary plans before we can put a shovel in the ground for implementation. We certainly can't just start building bricks without sufficient plans to do so. And so indeed, a lot of time and resources have already gone into what's necessary to put together the right plan to ensure that we have the right product for the people of Grenada.
So I also want to just make a comment because I think this is important for us to understand. All of the spending, Grenada has perhaps one of the most transparent public finance accounting systems in the world. And it's always good to get comments and questions. And I think my takeaway from this is, particularly for the team at the Ministry of Finance, we will in fact detail the spend, what the spend is about, where it's been spent, so that we understand how the funding is going and which aspects relate to, in a sense, direct construction related costs, which aspects relate to finance costs, etc. So you have a clear sense of how the spend is taking place. So that's a takeaway from me and the team at the Ministry of Finance and the Project Polaris team, so that we can address the specific finance questions that would be asked. The final point I want to make about the groundbreaking. The groundbreaking ultimately is, and I want to say this importantly in a political context. One of the challenges, I think, as someone who's come into office new, that I think the public has had with government is a question of trust. And a question oftentimes of, I'll use the Grenadian word, mamagism. we want to make sure Project Polaris is a national project that transcends government, that transcends the opposition, and has to be, from our perspective, and I said this in my presentation, there is no turning back on this project. Now, we could have taken the decision to have the groundbreaking a lot later in the year, but I know what that would lead to. It would lead to those naysayers thinking this is a political gimmick because we are closer to the elections, right? This is not a gimmick, and I've made that clear. We bought this land within the first year and a half of us getting into government. We didn't borrow any money to it. We financed it ourselves in collaboration with the vendor of the land. The land was available for purchase almost 12 years before, and we didn't do so. So it's important to emphasize that while in a classic sense, if it's a house or a small project, you'd probably break ground and then immediately after all of the heavy equipment and so on will roll in. This is a far more sophisticated project that has, as I said, national implications for ensuring that we can continue to get the support. And I'm going to emphasize this. When you're a small developing nation, that's the truth. People doubt the country's ability to take on and deliver transformative projects like this. And we have an obligation to, in fact, ensure that we make it clear to our partners and to the public that we are serious about this and that we are going to get it and that we will get it done. So this is also part of why, thank you guys, it's also part of why we have kept this unrelenting pace up, because projects like this take 10 to 15 years. We are clear that we want to accomplish it in a much shorter time frame. Thank you.
My friends, those were all adults, grown folks, as I said, senior citizens, enough of them sitting inside there, behaving like savages. And the Prime Minister, well, his people, I guess he's enjoying the protection, I don't know what to call it, right? And he is, no, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. While they behave like barbarians, totally embarrassed with mob mentality. I feel totally embarrassed as a Grenadian. I mean, the Secret Service was there to protect the Prime Minister. And so the behavior begs the question, these town halls, are they town halls of the government of Grenada? Town halls, one would think if the town hall was to update the diaspora on Project Polaris, a project our money's spent on, a project you, Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, and your Project Polaris sponsor, Andrea St. Bernard, and the rest of the committee, says belongs to the government and people of Grenada. When you were busted on who purchased the lands, that company, Grenada Asset Bank Company, when you were busted, well, to date, we have not had an official release or statement from you guys, but Cindy Daughter on her page, her Facebook page, posted that the land belongs to the government of Grenada. I guess who are we? We don't deserve an explanation. I mean, it is crazy. And as I speak of Cindy Daughter, I see Cindy Daughter put out a flyer. She's traveling to North America and to raise funds for her campaign, I presume, right? But at the top of it, she is flaunting the governor being the attorney general. Now it's either you going for the government of Grenada or for the NDC. And these people has blurred the line between government and party. There's no such thing anymore. It's just one straight thing across the board. And it's party. It's party. So was that town hall hosted by the government, the cabinet, whatever you want to call them, the government of Grenada, because the diaspora ambassador and others that's not supposed to be in the cabinet were there. And so, or was it an NDC town hall? And if you have it an NDC town hall and you don't want outsiders there, please put a sign by the door. But if a Grenadian, born and bred, went to school, started to work for several years before he left Grenada, what the Prime Minister is in New York, and this project sponsor had questions for them, lined up decently like everybody else. Why wasn't he allowed to ask his questions without being harassed and jeered at and hand flinging and booing? And what is that? I see big people, big adults, big men and women, like they behaved in Toronto, booing and grinning and flinging hand at the man, two big women that sit down by the mic. I looked at them and I was like, what is this? Who are you guys? You know? And before the head table opened their mouth, they claps for so, claps for so. You know? This is crazy stuff. This is crazy stuff. So tell us, you took our money, you gave it to this company, asset bank company. They paid down the deposit, 16 million, on the lands, which was costing 36 million for 84 acres of land, right? And then you're talking like Prime Minister, like you pay off and everything. We have $20 million owing on the land. And you all took our bonds, the government bonds, and gave it to the vendor as security for the $20 million owing. Act and show off as though you purchased the 84 acres of lands. The deception, the lies that come out from your mouth. So if you're having a town hall for all and sundry, why is it? Why is it your supporters have to bully and carry on as savages when someone who they perceive do not support them? And it's a perception. You don't know the guy. You've seen his lives and so. But what he does is speak for the people of Grenada. True to form, always. You don't know his politics. I mean, you're hearing them saying, where he going, what he doing here? What kind of behavior is that? Who are you guys, as I said? You guys are Grenadians? And that's not anything to be happy about, Prime Minister. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's actually disgusting. It is actually disgusting. According to our supreme law, we are all entitled to freedom of speech and the right to choose. I mean, the level of fear that is in Grenadians now, they're afraid to speak to you. They're afraid to attend a town hall, a meeting put by the opposition. That's those who like to hear both sides before they make a choice. People are literally afraid to be seen in any close proximity with the opposition, for fear them or members of their family, their kids, their friends might lose their jobs. And if we thought it was bad before, this is the worst. What kind of barbaric behavior is that? You guys should be ashamed of yourselves. It is breaking the internet, and I know some of you are seeing it, and you must feel embarrassed by that type of behavior and to be a part of that. Sitting in there. You know, I saw a clip over the past few days, a reel, if you want to call it that, on Facebook. And I thought, I shared it on my page, and I thought that was enough. But after I saw what happened on Sunday evening, I mean, I've never seen a more appropriate clip to play for you guys.
Did you know that a politician is supposed to be a civil servant? A servant, not a king, not a god, not a messiah. But in Jamaica, too many of us are falling into what psychologists call the cult of personality. The cult of personality. Listen to this, you know. That is the dangerous moment when you stop judging a politician by policies and start defending them like family. So the minute someone questions them, you feel personally attacked. Listen, you don't ask, is this true? You ask, who dare say that about my leader? And that is how nations become intellectually paralyzed. Because once a population reaches that state, the politician can do almost anything wrong, and supporters will always clap for them. Corruption, you clap. Broken promises, you find a reason to defend them. Failure, you accept their excuses. Why? Because you no longer see a civil servant. You see an extension of your own ego. And when emotion replaces critical thinking, you know what happens? Democracy starts dying in slow motion. Listen, a mature population questions leadership. A mature population questions leadership. A manipulated one worships leadership. So be very careful when you reach the point where facts offend you more than the failure. Because one of the most dangerous prisons in the world is when a man loses the ability to think against the crowd.
When facts affect you more than failure. Strong words, strong words. This gentleman is speaking directly to you, the NDC supporters. I mean, I know they have the ones that defend the party, the opposition, whoever, or the other parties, whichever, like that, but not in this barbaric manner. Not in and at that magnitude. No, not like this. This is the worst I've seen. Big old people. You leave your home on a Sunday and you go to a town hall and this is how you behave. Nah, man. I can't believe that. Now let me address the answers to the questions. Project Polaris, groundbreaking, and I'm quoting. They have a very aggressive timeline to work on. Now, what does that mean? So, because you have an aggressive timeline, things that should happen down the road, you pull it and bring it forward. That's what I understand by that. And They clapped. Nothing but mama guy and tomfoolery. And we down here know that already. Where is the construction? She said construction has begun. Now, construction is the process of building, assembling, or repairing structures and infrastructure. It transforms abstract plans into tangible physical sets using labor, material, and heavy equipment. Where is the the construction that's taking place on the project Polaris site? Again, I'll show you photos. If you look on your screen, you'll see photos. And these were taken out 3 weeks ago. And you're supposed to get an update, right? Coming soon. Coming soon. You'll get an update. Well, this is the land of, this is the era of drones, not so? So how you gonna hide it? They lock us out, right? So where is this construction that is taking place? She spoke of early works taking place, utility prep. Folks, all lies. You've seen the site. I've seen the site, and I've shared it with you. Nothing so. No, nothing happening. As I said last week, they didn't even have ants on the ground inside. There's nothing there but the grass that's growing back and a broken down excavator. What major excavator work taking place there? Bush growing on the excavator. You can tell it has not moved for weeks. Work is on the way. That's what I said. Work's on the way. The groundbreaking ceremony was to make sure there's transparency to the people of Grenada that work on the site has begun. Don't even understand that. How does a groundbreaking ceremony make sure there's transparency? What's the connection there? They just saying all kind of thing. It sound good. The people clapping. They clap. They don't even know what she say for themselves. All of a sudden it's a heckle people who they think don't support the NDC. Let me see how far that's gonna take you out. Y'all watch and see where that will take you out. Right? So yeah, to make sure there's transparency. What does taking a shovel and turning sod have to do with transparency? Y'all think we stupid? Transparency, yeah? Well, transparency. Why weren't you all transparent, Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell and Andrea St. Bernard? Why weren't you all transparent with us, telling us about that company, that Grenada Bank, Asset Bank Company Limited, that company you all formed, that you all took our monies from the consolidated fund, gave it to the Asset Bank to pay the vendor, Grenada Real Estate Corporation. Our 16 million. And our bonds, our government bonds, for the credit of $20 million. Our money. You guys said it belonged to the government of Grenada. We are the government and the people of Grenada. Why wasn't you all transparent with us? And tell us about that. You had chances, several, to tell us that this company bought the lands on behalf of the government and people of Grenada. And since you're so open and transparent, why don't you tell us about the company, Partners for Development? You all stay quiet. That you, Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, and Miss Andrea St. Bernard, your project sponsor, purchased 3 acres of lands at the same Calavini estate with Project Polaris, where you buy for Project Polaris. By the way, isn't that insider trading? Because the Prime Minister could have bought lands there before, because he was a lawyer who did the conveyance and so for the company. You, Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, your law firm, Mitchell and Cause, did the legal work for the Grenada Real Estate Corporation, that's the vendor, years before Project Polaris. Them time that you even study in politics. You've never been seen in a meeting or a political rally before 2023 or the campaign of year of 2022. Right? So you should, if you thought the lands, you needed lands, then you should have purchased it then. Why now? Why in 2023 when you purchasing for Polaris, you purchasing for yourself? How transparent is that? Or did you purchase the land? Because according to the documents, we have a mortgage document which says you borrowed money from the vendor to purchase their lands, their own land. Did you? Or was it a gift, a deed of gift? As a kickback? Was it a deed of gift as a kickback? This guy was a mortgage borrowed from the Grenada Real Estate Corporation. That's why we want you all to be transparent. I don't know how turning a sword help us. By the way, saying the project is on the way is another deception. It is deceptive and full of lies. On the way means the project has started and is currently in development. It indicates that the project is in progress, but has not yet reached completion or public release. Well, we understand that, but it's not on the way. There's nothing happening over there. For the second part of the question, we await the details on the spending from the Ministry of Finance, the Project Polaris team, and the Prime Minister, by extension, the government. Why weren't the breakdown? The Prime Minister stood up and promised a breakdown. But why wasn't that in the 2026 estimate of revenue and expenditures? Since you're so transparent, why wasn't it there? Why you just gave us a lump sum of $22.5 million spent, and it said in the budget on construction, it said that. Why? This is crazy stuff. Remember, folks, they also hid from us in the budget. It's nowhere in the budget. The debt the government owing to contractors and service providers, and so they wiped it clean from the budget. We yet to see that. And then they say they change it, they have a new model. And then they have Renault everywhere. The people, especially on the western side, and then up the eastern side, as far as Malmont, I guess, to where they build in the SDSS, the secondary school there, the St. David Secondary School. All hour in the night, morning, these trucks are on the road, traversing back and forth, pulling loud horns. The people have no rest. Besides the dust in their face and in their children, the toddlers, the little ones, where the asphalt plant and where the aggregates and so are stored in the back door of a pre-primary school. And they're allowed, the Prime Minister gave them the authority to do it, to go ahead, when planning had them on hold. Because he can't wait no more, because he don't want to use the asphalt from Grenada, which, by the way, is looking very good. I must say so myself. You all pass on the Cliff Road, it's kind of open. I don't know what if they ain't bother and cut ribbon. I mean, how you cut ribbon for something that was supposed to take 8 months and it's almost 3 years and counting. Eh? So the disturbance, the noise pollution in the night, especially when persons are trying to take a nap. Ask in Reno to ease up, Prime Minister, as your friend. Ask them to slow down in the night and through the mornings on the road, especially the trucks already making the sound and then the horns and the horns. So let's get back to the answer to the question, right? So we need a breakdown, and the Prime Minister said they would do a breakdown. So we await that breakdown. And Mr. Prime Minister, yes, it was a political gimmick. It was. You just didn't get through. So you had to keep moving. You all were hoping to get a feel-good moment out of this launch and the whole parade. Yeah, you were hoping. Look, the amount of money you all spent over there. You were hoping that happened, but there are skeletons in the closet, and they fell out. They fell out. As much as you all tried to keep them in the closet, they fell out. And so that feel-good moment never came. Whole thing, your only capital project for 4 years. It was a political gimmick. But you all hoping that it would give you a second term in office. But I say time and time again, government is a continuum. And it will get done. Not the city, but the hospital get done. Because we all know that we could do the hospital. However, we have to take care of what we have first in the meantime and save lives. And save lives. So what you didn't get here, you went to New York to get it. And of course, I guess the gullible ones gave you what you were looking for, right? By the way, you spoke of, you said that the lands were bought in collaboration with the vendor. I'm not sure what that means. I hope that probably you'll have another town hall where I can come and ask that question. What you mean by the lands were bought in collaboration with the vendor? I don't know what that means. Something very interesting came from the Prime Minister's mouth. He said a project like that normally takes 10 to 15 years, but they are going to get it done in less time. He did not commit himself to 3 years. However, the project sponsor, Andrew St. Bernard, said basically that doors open in 3 years, which is 2029.
So this is looking at a timeline for Project Polaris overall. As we mentioned, we have been working already for quite some time. So 2024, 2025, a lot of planning, feasibility studies, environmental social impact assessment, and stakeholder engagement has been ongoing. 2025, we spent a lot of time seeking and selecting strategic partners to continue to walk the journey with us. So we have Mount Sinai, we have the site planner and architect Perkins and Will, we have Deloitte, who has worked with us on our business plans, our medical tourism plans. Our next key strategic partner will be the major contractor, and we would have the major contractor on board in the coming months. So here's where we are, groundbreaking. And so what happens immediately after groundbreaking? It's more work. We have early works that have to be done. And so immediately after groundbreaking, we would move into some more geotechnical, geophysical testing that needs to be done. We would continue the site clearance. We would continue with site security. We would also need to, this is a large project, and so we would also need to build a camp for the construction. And so the provisioning of the site to have it ready to start main works will be happening over the next 5 to 6 months. And then we have hospital operations by 2029.
So the timeline, 2029, according to Ms. Andrew St. Bernard, the project sponsor, and the voice of the NDC, Ron Redhead. 2029, right? 3 years. Although the Prime Minister said it should take between 10 to 15 years. That's what Google told me as well, right? Folks, the hut in Billiard, for the construction, that in Billiard, but construction taking place. I mean, why would you just blatantly lie to the public so? And you know what? Yeah, go ahead and lie to them in the dust, because some of them, and all of them, as a matter of fact, have access to programs and shows that can tell them that nothing is happening. But they don't want to know. They don't care. Whatever they can say is it, no matter what. Some of them are some of the same ones I probably was in the town hall Andy had, where nothing he said there was true. And they clap and they praise him. Nothing, absolutely nothing he said came true or was correct, was true. Nothing. But they clap and they grin and they had a good time. Let's get to the meat of the matter, and we're doing housing. Through the former administration, that is the NNP administration, led by Dr. Keith Mitchell, the government and people of the Republic of China gifted the government and people of Grenada with 647 low-income units constructed in phase 2, distributed across 5 parishes, including Carriacou, St. Patrick, St. Mark, St. George, and St. David's, and of course Carriacou. In phase 1, 353 units located in Mongué, Frequenté, and Soubise. A total of 1,000 units altogether given to us by the government and people of the Republic of China free of cost, as we would say, free. The phase 2 units was officially handed over to the government of Grenada on the 31st of March 2022. The 31st of March 2022. And the official handover, at the official handover, Prime Minister Dr. Keith Mitchell stressed the need for low-income housing, a little above low income and middle income. In the third phase, however, phase 2, the 647 low-income houses was handed over. Here's a GBN news report on the handing over of the second phase.
647 families will soon take up residence in the Chinese low-income housing units at their 5 locations. Phase 2 of this project saw the construction of housing units at Boucherjou St. George, Dumfries Carriacou, St. Patrick, St. David, and St. Mark. The handing over ceremony of the Boucherjou units took place on Tuesday.
A major plank of government coming in after the next election will be more attack on serious development of housing stocks throughout the length and breadth of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. We are committing ourselves to this, the need for low-income housing, a little above low-income housing, and in some middle income. But we are looking at lands in several areas because the need is enormous, and whatever we do now will not meet even a small portion of it. So housing has to be a major factor going forward.
Minister for Social Development and Housing, Delma Thomas, was present for the handover of keys.
In the coming weeks, people will be able to occupy these houses after the processes of admission is completed. We have more applicants for these houses than we have units. And I say more applicants. In fact, we have maybe 5 times more applicants for each side than we have units. And so the team that is in place must review through a transparent process all applicants to ensure, based on clear criteria, that the most in need are given priority.
Chinese ambassador to Grenada, His Excellency Wei Hongtian, assures that the maintenance team will remain on the island for approximately 2 years to address any issue that may occur at the unit.
Honorable Prime Minister, honorable ministers, today, on behalf of the Chinese government, I have the great honor to officially hand over these 647 house units to you, and through you, to the government of Grenada and the people of Grenada.
Officials say the second phase of Chinese housing units is built to a different standard than the first batch. A fitness area has been incorporated, as well as a division to accommodate a maintenance crew and equipment. These elements were not included in Phase 1. Windows are also being adjusted to local standards. St. David has the largest number of units, 222 units. The project was led by the Beijing Construction Engineering Company.
Thank you, GBN. The persons that number 10 spoke of who really needs it, they still need it and can't afford it. They can't access it because they are no longer low-income housing. They are now middle and upper income house, right? Less than 3 months later, after the general election was held and the National Democratic, the NDC, won, beating out the New National Party 9-6. During the campaign, the political leader of the NDC, Deacon Mitchell, campaigned on the low-income houses and why the units wasn't distributed. Remember I told you it's in March of 2022 The keys were handed over. Election was in June, right? Why they not they were not distributed? Although number 10 could tell him Carriacou, they started the distribution in Carriacou. But what did the NDC do when they come in? They took back the keys from the recipients. And as I understand it, not one person who received keys for the units in Carriacou before the NDC came in office, not one of them got back keys. Well, of course, they can't afford it because now you have to purchase it and you have to purchase upfront, right? Let's have Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell. No, Prime Minister. Let's hear him in the campaign trail.
Let's talk about the state of our housing and the lack of affordable housing for our people, particularly our young people, particularly some of our elder citizens who have no place to stay. There are two ladies who may think I've forgotten them. I haven't forgotten you. In the last 24 to 48 hours, I've been bombarded with requests for help from women who have children who either have no place to stay or about to be put on the street because they have no place to stay. Since 1985, we have not had any systematic plan to provide affordable housing for people. All we've had is some apartment buildings that have been provided generously by the people and government of China. But these houses or apartments have been handed over to the government of Grenada. And up to now, in St. David's, for example, they have not distributed the houses to the citizens of St. David. Up to now, you can't even walk in the compound because they have security guard in the empty buildings. If you cared about your people, if you appreciated that housing is a fundamental and basic right, there would have been a transparent process. We would have gone to the communities and find the people who are most vulnerable, and we would have known what the criteria is for getting the houses. But let me tell the woman in St. David, you have to take no formal lumber under the National Democratic Congress to get your house.
Did you hear how condescending he was towards the Chinese housing project? Yeah. This guy, something is wrong with this guy. And did you all, Prime Minister, did you all go into the communities, as you said, to find the vulnerable that really needed these houses, these units? Did you? So, on the campaign trail, Deacon Mitchell also, you heard it, threw shades at the Chinese units. Very condescending. And it was then he promised Grenadian the Grenadian style houses. He called it Project 500. 500 houses a year.
I'm going to tell you about it. Within 12 months of forming the government, the National Democratic Congress will start a nationwide housing program. That program will be done in conjunction with the private sector, so we will have a public-private partnership. And we will commence building 500 Grenadian-style homes in each parish. And we will do so each year thereafter, so that our citizens of Grenada can live in affordable housing, not apartments, with their front yard or their backyard that they can improve in their own image, shape, and likeness over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So that when you retire, you can pass on a part of Grenada to your children and to your grandchildren, and you could say to them, that was the vision of the National Democratic Congress.
A nationwide housing project. 500 in each, you heard him, right? 500 in each parish. And it can go on. But that's to start nationwide. Each parish, 500 Grenadian-style houses. And the first 5 would start a year after they come in. He said within 12 months after them coming into office. So within that first year, the first 500 was supposed to be built. Now, in the reading of the 2023 budget in December of 2022, Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, who was the Minister of Finance at the time, spoke of the first 500 houses to be built in a place called Stony Gut, St. John's. And the amount allocated for that project was $2.5 million for Project 500. You know, someone asked me recently if Stony Gut is a real place. And the truth is, I couldn't answer. The only time I heard of Stony Gut was in that budget presentation when the Prime Minister said that's where the first 500 Grenadian-style houses will be built. Now, all that noise made by the leader on the campaign trail, I mean, you heard him, the passion. About handing over and distributing the houses to the people who need it. Remember, the keys were only handed over in March of 2022. And the election was on the 23rd of June, 2022. Less than 3 months after the election happened, the new Deacon Mitchell-led administration, it took them 1 year and 3 months to start the process. And after the Prime Minister announced that the low-income houses were to be distributed in June of 2023.
We have allocated $2.4 million to retrofit and upgrade the affordable houses that have been graciously donated by the People's Republic of China. We commit to the allocation of the 647 units no later than June of 2023. Mr. Speaker.
No later than June 2023. That did not happen. I told you 1 year and 3 months later. But that's the MO. They always have timeline, giving you dates. They never start on time. They never meet the timeline. Just total chaos all the time. That did not happen. June came and went. Then on September the 15th, 2023, at a press conference hosted by the Housing Authority, Grenada, the Board of Directors, together with the Ministry of Housing, spoke on the status and cost of the low-income houses. Let's hear the chairman of the Housing Authority.
So as we go down the road, we would see that ownership of the units from the start is the way to go. we would transfer into your hands over 60 an equity or wealth directly into your hands immediately as you purchase these units. We are asking people to do one of two things. Come, if you have the full amount, you could come to the Housing Authority and buy it straight from the Housing Authority. If you don't, then you will need a loan from any of the financial institutions. The Housing Authority of Grenada contacted the financial institutions before, and they are on board, and they're eager and they're willing. They are going to be offering loans. We had suggested at 3%, and it will go from maybe between 3 and 5%. But we really got the assurance of some that they would stick to the 3%. The cost of a single one-bedroom unit is $55,000. And the cost of a single two-bedroom unit is $73,000.
So one time there that rules out low income. I'm talking about if you have the full amount, you can come to the housing authority and pay. Why would a low income person get $73,000 or $55,000? Have it sitting there. And if you have it sitting there, would you go and buy a unit? Right? And come to the and if not, you have to go to the financial institutions, and which he said they committed. Not true. I had called up at the time. Not true. As a matter of fact, one of the major banks said they don't want no part of that. It's the credit unions that's helping out the ordinary man. And we're talking about the middle class now, not low income, that are purchasing these units, along with persons from the diaspora who have them rented out or locked up. So when they come home, for vacation homes, whilst the homeless remain homeless. The homeless that the Prime Minister is talking about and who are about to get put out on the streets. You can't just go to a financial unit and borrow $73,000 if you don't have a job, or if your income is too low and you have your bills to pay, your children to send to school and all of that. It can't happen. And they knew it. They just took the unit that the Chinese gave us free. So even if you were charging them for it, you wanted to charge them a lump sum, not because before they would pay as they go along. Yes, I'm sure some persons were not paying or were not paying how they should, but some of them had no income. And that is what a government's supposed to do for their people. But they're selling it and talking about it should have been a unit like that would have been 200,000, and now you're getting it for 73,000. You didn't spend 200,000 for it. You got it free. You got it free. Automatically, once the cost of the unit was announced, it ruled out. And as a matter of fact, they said they were not units, they were condominiums. On the GBN to the Point program, the chairman thought he should advise the financial institutions on how they should proceed. If persons can pay monthly, then he said some people could have lump sums and go into the bank if every quarterly and pay a set of drama like he owned the financial institutions. I don't know where he is now, like he disappeared since the project sponsor show up. But we can get to that coming down. The chairman, he did, however, admit that condos are not low income housing. On that to the point program, he told us that condos are not low income housing.
ultimately with condominiums, there is a maintenance issue. Personally, I don't believe they work well in the lower income bracket. I think condominiums, when you look at it in the States and stuff, it works better in a higher income bracket because people know they have to pay maintenance costs. All right? Regardless of what you pay for the condominium.
So he's comparing the Chinese units now with condominiums in the States. I rise in Manhattan means something. I don't know. It's like magnet pulling all these people together in the NDC, and we're getting no results or poor results. But we already knew that the low income earners would not be able to afford the units. He didn't have to tell us that. We knew that from the time they said they had to come up with 55,000 for the one bedroom or 73,000 for the two bedrooms. So the low income houses became middle income and upper income. And there was no Project 500 in sight. However, that too, we realize, also was out of reach of the low income earners. So they left by the wayside again. We knew that when the Prime Minister, Deacon Mitchell, on one of his trips at an event in Florida, offered the housing to people in the diaspora. That is the Project 500 houses. So as mentioned before, in December of 2022, in fact, on the 5th of December 2022, Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, as Minister of Finance, announced the first 500 houses of Project 500 to be built in Stony Gut, St. John, an allocation of $2.5 million for Project 500 to begin in 2023.
It is in this budget cycle include: 1. The Stony Gut Climate Resilient Housing Development Pilot Project, which aims to construct modern, high-quality, climate-resilient Grenadian-style homes in Stony Gut in the parish of St. John. Construction is expected to start in 2023, Mr. Speaker, and $2.5 million has been budgeted. Mr. Speaker.
So we all know that did not happen. And then in a town hall meeting in St. Patrick's on the 12th of June 2024, Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell announced that the government's Project 500 will no longer be Grenadian-style houses. And this is me saying that because we know it moved from Grenadian-style houses to factory manufactured prefabricated houses rather than the traditional houses he spoke of, in an effort to significantly lower the cost of the houses and also save time. So he told us there that in an effort to save time and money, we now go in prefab.
We recognize that housing is a big challenge in Grenada. There is a current housing repair program that the government is running to assist persons in housing repairs. But this program has its challenges and it has its limitations. But we are nonetheless going to continue because we recognize that in some instances people are in truly desperate circumstances and we need to cater to them. But the program is not sustainable. And in the long run, it isn't really improving the housing stock in a sustainable manner. The average person builds a home once in their lifetime, for the most part. Maybe twice if you have an extended, if you go past the 70. And we need to build homes that can sustain, endure, and resist things like the hurricanes, resist things like termites, etc., etc. So, I can't see the screen from here, so I'm not so sure if you have the right. So, we promised Project 500. and we intend to deliver Project 500. So what we are hoping to do with these contractors is to use technology, modern technology, that can allow us to do prefab houses. That is, houses that are actually built or manufactured as much as possible in factories, and then what you're doing is you are installing the homes. So we would build the foundations, but you are literally installing the homes, installing the plumbing, installing the electricity and the other amenities. What that should allow is for a much more rapid, I'm going to use the word installation of the homes, in a shorter space of time, where you can then do a lot of houses quickly and hopefully cheaply.
We were told the pilot project will be constructed at Dunfermline in St. Andrew. That is now the prefab, right? So we forget about Stony Gut and the 2.5 million that was allocated in 2023, and we move on to the prefab. We go into Dunfermline, St. Andrew, where there is also a housing project there. There's a housing project there before. People purchased land, and the housing authority, I believe, built houses for persons living there. So what they did, in fact, was to piggyback on that project that already had infrastructure. Because you see, all the time they're talking about 500 houses in Stony Gut and wherever else. I think they were supposed to go in somewhere in St. David's. The Prime Minister had called St. David's as well. Then you have to do roads, you have to do utilities, electricity, road, water, do all of that. I didn't think they take that into consideration, because that would have called for a lot of money, a lot more money, and of course time and everything. So that's why now they're scrambling to piggyback on the project, the Dunfermline project that is already there, and causing problems with landowners or property owners that were already there with the project, right? Let's hear the chairman of the authority on the pilot project 500.
Project 500, it's a government initiative to alleviate some of the stresses on the housing industry, to improve the housing stock. As you could appreciate, there's many reasons why persons are unable to build. It could be one, the availability of land. Two, it could be just the cost of building. So combining the two, Project 500 seeks to be able to find land for persons by having large areas of land and developing a community. So what we're trying to do is to have small homes, bigger homes, so that you have a wide range of persons and affordable homes. So if your person was trying to do it on their own, they would not have been able to afford a type of home like that. The quality of homes are such that it would stand up to the hurricane code, the building codes that we have here in Grenada. So it's more resilient. We take into consideration also in Project 500 that climate is changing, and we will try to bring in at a lower level climate smart techniques and material to improve the quality of the home. So we're not just building a regular home, we would try to have it with solar and some other facilities, water storing the facilities and so on, that you would not normally find in a regular housing project of our kind. So that's the difference between what we have done in the past and now. So this in a nutshell is Project 500, but we have 4 elements to Project 500. The first element deals with, we call it category. So we say category A, where the government or housing authority has land already for that. And in this case, we're starting off with Dunfermline. That is housing authority's land. That is housing authority. It's been designated for homes for a lot of years now, and we already have a housing project up there. So we're just extending that area and using our land to put more homes. In that area, we have a test site that is starting that has started, and you would see it off the ground in terms of construction of the foundation during the month of October or towards the end of October. And should complete between December to January, depends on the speed. These are 17 homes. Okay. And from that, you would get on the other side of the road, Housing Authority also have a further 15 acres, which we would develop and put probably about 75 units, individual homes, including 4 or 5 green spaces.
Project was launched in October of 2024, 17 model houses were supposed to be built. At one point today, we were told that each model has its own contractor. There's another time they said 6 contractors to spread throughout the 17. And somewhere along the way, the chairman disappeared. And Randy Dolan, chairman of the board of the Grenada Tourism Authority, the GTA, became the project sponsor. These titles came in very handy to create jobs for the boys and the girls. We have Ms. Saint Bernard, project sponsor for Polaris, Mr. Dolan, project sponsor for the prefab houses. He's responsible. He's the middleman, so to speak. We have a housing authority. We have a Ministry of Housing. We have the Ministry of MIT doing housing as well. But we still have Mr. Randy Dolan, the project sponsor for Project 500. He was a middleman, or I know you call him maybe first, second, and third man for the prefab ones in Carriacou. For those of you who don't know Mr. Dolan, if you look at that infamous photo with Deacon and the boys, there is Mr. Dolan showing the interior of the houses in Carriacou, or should I say the house in Carriacou, because only one of the units got retrofitted.
All right, welcome to this Happy Home 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 420 square foot unit. Come on in. So on entry, you will notice that we have a big, bright, open living concept. Here you have a wonderful space where you can seat 2 stools and still have storage right here. We have a hot plate induction stove top right here. However, you have the option of removing this and adding like a 32-inch range on top. Full stove with an oven as well if you want to get an appliance package. But in addition to that, a wonderful feature is the extractor fan up on top. So no matter what you're cooking, it takes the air right out. This home is wired for 220 volts, so it's sort of in standard with what we do have available right now in the local market. You have a great sink right here, nice big window for again a lot of light and air. All of these windows will come with screens, and then your refrigerator goes right here on the side, plugs in right there. On this area, again you have the double doors, impact resistant doors, and these doors again are very well insulated, so it keeps the sound out. Once you close these doors, you do not hear anything much from the outside. Walking over to the bathroom, you will see the bathroom finishes are quite impressive. Here you have a shower that comes with a hard plastic door. Frosted window. There's also a ventilation vent on top. And then you also have the plugs that you can use to plug in whatever you need to use if you are in the bathroom. Entering the bedroom, you would notice that this is a pretty spacious bedroom. A queen bed would fit from end to end right here, allowing night tables on either end. And then you also have the plugs on each side that you can plug into the nightstands. Another large window on either side, and you could frost this if you want. You could put a blind here. And again, these windows all open this way with the screens coming down. That makes it very attractive for keeping it open during the night and not allowing any insects to sort of fly in. The air conditioned unit comes standard in these units in this bedroom. Again, as much as it comes standard over on this side of the living area. When these air conditioned units on, they're enough to completely cool the unit down. And again, keeping that sort of insulated cool air inside. This wall right here separates the two rooms, and again, you have adequate closet space on both sides of the rooms. The other fantastic thing about these homes.
Nicey, according to the Jamaicans. Nicey, nice. Yeah. Who those houses that is retrofitted for? A single mother of 5 in Carriacou that lost their home in burial. You setting them up inside the air conditioner. Who paying the bills? The company who came to retrofit had a hard time getting it done because the prefab wasn't bolted up properly. They fought and did their best to get that one done, and they left. They gone. They disappear on us. They gone. And so the rest, I think it was 5 or 6 units that was put up to start. Let me tell you, there are hundreds of those somewhere in a container that we paid for, or we already paid for it, and they're there rotting away, just as the ones that was left in the bushes to rot away. If you look, you see they start to peel and all sorts of to rot away in the bushes. And you know what the sad thing is? It didn't really work out. Give the thing away. There are persons that are homeless right now. I'm speaking to a lady who is they ended up giving a unit in Carriacou because her partner at the time is very close to the minister, right? She and the partner break up and she get notice to leave. She understand they're coming to at the end of the month. First of all, they had given her a weekend. And now then people ball out. People start talking about it. It was out there in the media as well. Now she told me yesterday that they said they're coming on Monday. Right? There are people who need places to stay. You bought it, we bought it already. It in container some way. Give it to the poor. Give it to people who need. Let them put it together and live. Or you put it together for them. All of the units they did, all of the apartments they did, or the houses, whatever you call them, the prefab ones that I just advertised there, where he going on like, come on down, you the next contestant and the price is right. You understand? They're rotting away, no one in it, our money spent and wasted. Why? It's called nepotism. It's called nepotism, my friends. Putting wrong pegs in square hole. So, Mr. Dolan, after Carriacou didn't work out too well, he became the project sponsor for Project 500. If you look, you'd see the ones that left in Carriacou in the bushes. Is Mr. Dolan as a project sponsor is like, okay, that didn't work out. Let's move on. Next. It didn't work out. Get people that know what they're doing, right? Anyway, here's Mr. Dolan in an MTV newsfeed on Project 500, the pilot, and listen to this carefully, the pilot phase of the program.
17 of the 500 proposed housing models under Project 500 have already been tested as the government of Grenada moves ahead with plans to expand access to affordable housing across the island. The initiative, spearheaded by the government of Grenada, aims to strengthen the country's housing sector through resilient and sustainable solutions. Dubbed Project 500, the program is designed to revolutionize affordable housing by utilizing improved technologies, smart climate features, and more efficient construction methods. Project sponsor Randall Dolan provided a brief overview of the initiative.
When we talk about Project 500, we're talking about a vision for the future ultimately. Okay. So the concept came up about 500 because the administration's goal in the first term was to try to build at least 500 affordable homes.
According to Dolan, 17 of the 500 housing models have already undergone testing.
Right now in the Dunfermline site, through the Housing Authority of Grenada, we have tested 17 models. Right. Because ultimately, if we're going to scale to at least get to 500, but it's 500 of what type of housing, right? We understand what traditional has given us through the years, but also living in a global environment, we know that there are different technologies out there that we could utilize and see how we can make the homes more affordable while keeping them desirable as well as sustainable. So we want to build them faster, keep the cost down, use different technologies, again, and make sure that we're able to now scale that project on a grander scale so we can deliver more than 500 homes, we can deliver thousands. And more importantly, we want to understand how, to ultimately shape the way we deliver housing in Grenada and how we think about housing in Grenada. So this pilot is going to even inform a little bit more about just 17 homes or just about 500 homes. But how can Grenadians ultimately change the way we build? So it's more efficient, there's less headache, it's more cost effective for everybody.
He added that phase 1 of the project is still being evaluated as the government continues to assess its feasibility and long-term impact. Maxine Antoine for MTV News.
The model houses was done so potential buyers can choose their designed model, right? They were model houses. 17 was started to build, 12 was completed, and then they invited people to start to view. But you know what's sad though? When you listen to Mr. Dolan, it's how they all think they can take us for fools. They can just pull wool over our eyes, tell us one thing, and then when that did not work out, come back with totally different story, laced with deception and lies. I told you guys, last election was pie in the sky, and this time around, this upcoming election is deception and lies. Now, Randy Dolan, the Project 500 sponsor, in that clip is telling us that Project 500 more or less meant 500 houses total, altogether. Now, you heard the Prime Minister in that earlier clip about Project 500, 500 in every parish. Right? On the campaign trail, he told us that. You heard him as Minister of Finance in the budget. And here is the Minister of Mobilization, Implementation, and Transformation on Project 500.
And also, I spoke about the Chinese housing at the beginning.
but we want to do some Grenadian style housing in the future. And when I say in the future, I mean starting next year. So we have a project called Project 500. And that project is being led by the Honorable Minister of Social Development, Philip Telesford. We have already identified lands in Beauchejou and other places. And the next step is to get developers to come, get local contractors to come, get the banks involved. And we're going to do a project called Project 500, where we are going to build 500 Grenadian-style housing. And when we do that, we are not going to stop there. We are not going to stop there. We are going to continue, and next 500, and next 500, and next 500, until we solve the housing situation in Grenada.
You've heard him. The next 500, and the next 500, and the next 500, and the next 500, until they solve the housing problem in Grenada. Right? So why is it now they're pretending that they promise us only 500 houses, and they built 17, right? And they told us that 17 were model houses, right? And today, that pilot phase, they're telling us it is the first phase right now. It's the first phase. And so the 17 houses are now for sale. Now here's a GIS clip. Speaking of the pilot phase of the project, as they spoke of to the construction supervisor and the junior engineer of the project.
12 houses on the Project 500 at Dunfermline, St. Andrew are already completed, and the remaining 5 are 85% complete. This was revealed during a recent media tour last week. Project 500 aims to provide affordable homes to citizens of Grenada. The pilot phase of the project involves the construction of 17 houses. Construction supervisor Kelvin Boka and junior engineer Justin Bayer led the tour, providing information about the project. According to Boka, the houses are being constructed using different methods and will have 2, 3, and 4 bedrooms. The lots are being built back to back, with each house having a specific size and layout.
They're not prefab actually, just a minor correction. They're actually modular panels. In the case of the coconut is actually thermally insulated in the core with mesh reinforcement to the outer part of the module, upon which we would apply a low pressure concrete, commonly known as shotcrete, which is then plastered smooth to give you the finish that you see there. Afterwards, it is then fit out. The second one, to the middle, bay leaf, another different system. This is a system that is basically concrete infill. So the panels are erected. This outer skin is similar to high thermal impact, something like concrete board, and it is then filled with concrete, and all of the essential services are then installed. The one behind us, a different model entirely. This is framed with modular steel. As you see, large roofs done with steel frames. These steel frame is then clad with a high impact, high tensile material on the outside, and the internal walls are done with sheetrock. So 3 different units, 3 different model approaches to construction.
We know we're building now, and in Grenada there is the upgrade to the construction, the building code, and we've seen what has been happening with climate change. What sort of testing was done with these particular materials for these modules as we deal with the uncertainty of climate change, as we talk earthquakes, we talk hurricanes?
The reinforcement of each of those cleverly done using normal rebar reinforcement. However, in accordance with our OECS building code, each of these can withstand wind forces of over 160 mile per hour winds. So those factors taken into consideration. Also, because it's modular construction, the time or the construction time period was significantly lessened. The type of materials used facilitates thermal insulation. It keeps the building a bit cooler in warmer weather, and at night it is able to dispel the heat. So thermally, even when air conditioning would be installed, you expect to have savings in like your energy bill and cost savings also.
Justin Bayer provided details about the size of the lots and the houses, stating that most of the houses have a specific square footage.
In most of our prefab, except one, the aim is to have quicker construction, easier construction, cheaper construction. And so we have on site 17 units. About 12 of them are structurally complete, and we still have 5 to go. Each of the lots in Dunfermline are approximately 4,800 square feet. So when you purchase from the development, you will be purchasing your house and your lot of approximately 4,800 square feet. In this unit called Bayleaf, it is 3 bedrooms, 1.5 bath. And so each of the bedrooms have the capacity to hold a queen-sized bed. And of course, the bedrooms can be used, if you don't need 3 bedrooms, they can be used for something as a study or a playroom, as we've staged it here today.
Once the initial 17 homes are completed, prospective clients will have the opportunity to choose their desired model for construction after the necessary process. The goal of providing affordable housing to the people of Grenada is on track at Dunfermline, with the project's completion anticipated to benefit the community.
But are they prefab or not? The Prime Minister told us they were going to be prefab. The construction supervisor said they're not. The engineer said they are. Let us remember, though, the rationale given for the prefab was time, the time factor. The Prime Minister said cheaper and quicker. And each model was to be designed by its own contractor. It took them 2 years and 2 months to build the 12 model houses. 2 years and 2 months. Again, let me say, the houses were built simultaneously. So it wasn't we build one and we waiting to build the next. They said in an effort for time, so because they wanted them all to finish together, basically. So they had contractors, different contractors, they were all worked on at the same time, bottom line. It takes 4 to 8 months, my friends, to build a Grenadian style concrete house, right? A 4-bedroom house would take 7 to 12 months. 7 to 12 months to build the 4-bedroom. It takes 4 to 8 months to build a Grenadian style concrete house. That's like the 2-bedroom. And 7 to 12 months to build a 4-bedroom. So why are we talking about time? We could have built the Grenadian style houses. They probably would have taken less time because they know what they're doing and understand what they're doing. That project had so much hurdles, so much different contractors, until I think it's Asians that end up billing it, right? And the entire thing took 2 years and 2 months. All of a sudden, a few days ago, somewhere around the 14th of May, 2026, in a GIS release, Project 500 launches affordable homes in Dunfermline, right? And they have criteria to qualify for the application, and that's for to purchase, right? So it went from pilot to regular house to purchase. And to qualify, it's a whole long thing, but I'll just read. To qualify, applicants must be a Grenadian citizen residing in Grenada, be 18 years or older, have a, hate to see a 15-year-old going to purchase a house, have a total household gross monthly income not exceeding $7,500, demonstrate a stable and verifiable source of income, not currently own or co-own residential property, local or abroad, use the home as their primary and permanent resident. Additionally, married applicants must apply jointly, and successful applicants must remain the sole approved deed holders under the program. As part of the pilot allocation framework, 50% of the homes in the first phase will be reserved for families currently residing in St. Andrew, while the remaining homes, you see now the pilot phase turned first phase, right? And the remaining homes will be distributed equally between public servants and private sector employees. The homes were built with future in mind. We'll stop. I'll stop here because it's a whole long thing that we don't really need to know. And I'll back that up with a clip by the project sponsor.
Homes are now available for purchase under Phase 1 of the Project 500 in Dunfermline, St. Andrew. Project sponsor Randall Dolland described the launch as one of the most important phases of the pilot initiative, as the program now moves into the critical stage of assessing market demand and accessibility for qualifying homeowners.
We encourage all interested applicants to visit project500.gd, review the eligibility requirements, and complete the online application form. Once submitted, the Housing Authority of Grenada will guide applicants through the next steps, including documentation required for the mortgage financing through their preferred financial institution. These homes were designed for hard-working Grenadians who have increasingly found themselves priced out of the traditional housing market, but still deserve the opportunity to own a modern, climate-smart home within a properly planned community. These homes also include climate-smart features such as enhanced insulation, low-flow plumbing fixtures, and solar energy systems designed to improve energy efficiency and reduce long-term utility costs.
To qualify, applicants must be Grenadian citizens residing in Grenada, 18 years or older, have a total household gross monthly income not exceeding $7,500, demonstrate a stable and verifiable source of income, and use the home as their primary and permanent residence. As part of the pilot allocation framework, 50% of the homes in the first phase will be reserved for families currently residing in St. Andrew, while the remaining homes will be allocated equally between public servants and private sector employees. The intention is to build resilient communities for Grenadian families through the project.
The goal was never to simply build houses. Our goal is to create communities that families can be proud of, places of comfort, dignity, security, and opportunity. The future expansion of Project 500 will be guided by the lessons learned in this pilot phase as we continue working to deliver more affordable and resilient housing solutions across Grenada.
So what happened to the lands across the road that the chairman spoke of that can hold probably 75 houses, right? And you promise the people 500 houses. You have 12. They're trying to finish up the next 5. But you have 12 that's ready and done, right? Project 500 reduced, and I'll give you the 5. So reduced to project 17, and you're speaking as though you have 500 houses a day, and you're putting it up and talking about how many. I heard Tanti speaking of how much applications they have already for the 17 houses. And so you know that is to tick a box. The rush to sell these houses, to say that they have a project 500, and that's all it is, because it was a pilot project. Now you're selling the pilot project. Would you believe this? The pilot phase automatically became phase 1. Why? Because at the rate they're going, they will never be able to build one Project 500 house before the next general election. And they got to tick that box. That's an important box to tick, because I was one of the project, the star project, right? They can't even finish unfinished ones. They're struggling to finish because, of course, finance is a problem, money is a problem, and there were some things about the materials. Some of the materials they needed, they struggled to access it on island, so they have to import it. So Project 500 became Project 17. You know, it's just a shame, because this Deacon Mitchell-led administration cannot seem to get anything rolled out properly to fruition. It can't. It looked like it just cannot happen. This is as a result, though, of what? Nepotism. Wrong pegs in square holes. A waste of our slim resources, our financial resources. We already barely have any. We're operating on a deficit. And of course, a waste of time. Let's continue housing. And the question is, where is the $24.5 million given to Andy Williams of MIT from the supplementary budget, September 2024, to build houses in St. Patrick / St. Mark? 8 million was given to him to do 26 houses one way and another 15 one way in St. Patrick. We would like to know where these houses are. And then 15 million was given to him to build 200 houses between St. Patrick and St. Mark, I believe, at $50,000 per house. I've heard no one speak of purchasing a house in St. Patrick for $50,000. We have no idea where the money went, the 15 million went. A total in that budget, as I said, of 24.5 million was given to Andy Williams at MIT after Hurricane Beryl in September of 2024. There's a supplementary budget. There were all kind of stories. MIT was also responsible for the Build Back Better project. And we know of the corruption, the contractors and service providers that's been changing checks, double, some case in double. I told you the story of the gentleman who had two to bill, a one bedroom and a two bedroom, 15,000 and 35,000. He was called in a day, although he told them he wasn't ready. He had private jobs he was doing. He was called in, busy. Come with your ID. He went to the bank. Miss Dawn from MIT walked him up to the cooperative bank. He changed the two checks, totaling $45,000. He gave Miss Dawn back the envelope with the cash. He went home. She went back to MIT, well, I presume, with the envelope, with the cash. When he was ready, he said to them he could only do the small one. He's really busy, but he has a partner he can give the second one to. They agreed. He gave them name and number. Before you know it, they called the partner to come and change a check for the same house that the gentleman who spoke to me changed a check for they had his friend. That's the two bedroom, right? For 30,000. Two checks with two different checks. He changed one, and his partner told him he changed a check. They called him to change a check for that one as well. But when the gentleman finished billing the $15,000 house and he went to collect his money, he was given his $15,000 cash. John Gotti style. We ain't dealing with nothing else but cash in MIT. Right? He was given his $15,000 and $500 tip from the government of Grenada, $500 tip. Right? So a lot of that has been happening. There's one gentleman who had a $10,000 little house. He was billing $10,000. They gave him a check to change for $20,000 and tell him to take 5 and bring back 15. And when he finished, he'd get the next 5 from his project. From his project, he took 10 up front. He brought back 10 to them. Nobody said a word. They cannot because it's Rachi fee. So they can't say, we tell you take 10, take 5 and you take 10. And you know what is the thing? What is about that? That gentleman is an NDC supporter. And he was proud to say, he said, take it. And up to now, nobody called him about it. Because it's just cash everywhere. Another thing stories you heard of is that you get a check, you have a $10,000, let's say, project. Through MIT, we at MIT still. And they tell you, change this check for 15, 5 of which is mine. Or I'm giving you a project, you have to give me something from the monies you get. And then there were the ones where you show up at like the headquarters on the carronage. Because the gentleman was his friend and he got the job, the minister was able to stop there what looked like it was regular enough to be like once a week and collect checks of $10,000 and $5,000 and how much thousand from the contractor. Real John Gotti style. So all of this corruption is taking place, still is taking place inside MIT. Miss Dawn, Miss Besessa, the permanent secretary, Miss Nicole Clark, and others. Just money, movement of monies and ghosts. As a matter of fact, the first permanent secretary that worked with Minister Andy Williams, when refused to sign ghost checks, was removed from the ministry. The minister wanted to have nothing to do with her inside there. You get out of there. And then replaced her with his first cousin. His first cousin replaced her and is still there as the permanent secretary in that ministry. The Ministry of MIT is riddled with corruption, and even with all this monies and the movement of the monies, their worker that got fired because they have internet banking. And so she had access to it and was able to see the movement of monies from the MIT moving into personal bank accounts and so, and talked about it. And she was fired. She was fired. Right? There are so many contractors and service providers without pay who did not receive pay, and some as long as 1 year from the 1st of January, made 1 year, and they have not received their monies from the Ministry of MIT. We now almost in the month of June, and yet to receive their monies. One contractor who contacted me recently, a couple of weeks ago, he said he has not gotten paid since January of 2025. And he backed that up, telling me that MIT is full of ghosts. He said MIT workers picking up materials for a particular destination, a job, and they're dropping it off elsewhere. So the material never got to where it was supposed to go. Workers have their own storeroom. They've built their own houses. He said there are times when materials are dropped off to begin construction, and before the house starts, the materials are removed. There are cases where there are no contractors, where, well, of course, the minister did say he picked up guys on the blocks and the limes, and after 2 weeks, they were able to build their own houses and build road. So you don't need the professionals anymore, right? And that showed up in the work, because the Minister for Housing complained, and also the Minister of Finance complained in the To the Point program on the standard of work and the corruption that was taking place. There are cases where there were no contractors, where MIT workers dressed in MIT t-shirts paying their own workers, and the contractors not getting paid. He said there are ghost houses being built. MIT workers, their brother, their sister, their friends, their nenen, they're getting, or everybody have houses. Some of them occupying ghost houses. MIT houses built and rented out. So workers building MIT houses, they already have their homes, and they're renting out the MIT houses. Workers have trucks carrying materials, keeping the monies in the ministry amongst themselves. Imagine truck drivers, he said, getting as much as $33,000 a month. Some have friends who have trucks that are being used as well. According to the contractor, sometimes you sign a contract, you give 30 days to build a house. 30 days will pass without no material to build the house. The material, as I said before, being dropped elsewhere. The MIT workers, he said, and I'm quoting, the MIT workers need to be investigated. Not my words, the contractor words. And he said, all these corruption happening in plain sight. He said, dead men owning house, dead men receiving contracts, dead men receiving monies, but contractors working without pay. After 90% of the work built, some of them might get paid, and most of them are still waiting for their monies. And of course, the whole check thing still continues. They check weeks in advance and never receive their monies when the time comes. So where is the money? The question remains. Where is the money? Contractors' friends are given work, so members can get a cut. And we're talking about MIT workers. The Ministry of MIT is riddled with corruption, has been from day one. It has been swept under the rug until the ministry ran broke, and then the Prime Minister decided to remove the Build Back Better program from MIT and Andy. And that was in November of 2025, again, after the cup is full and overflowing. The making of the Ministry of MIT and putting Andy as the minister was masterful. Putting a corrupt individual to head a ministry of corruption, in other words, as Tillman Thomas would say, putting cat to watch cheese. When I heard the Prime Minister in an interview on Boss FM referring to Minister Andy Williams as one who gave up his private business and sacrificed his life to secure, or to serve rather, blatantly lying to the people, I was astonished. As Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell.
I say those things to say, when I got into public service, I did so simply to try and help and to serve. And I think for most of the persons who sit in the cabinet, that's their motive. Same thing for MP Williams. He had his business, right? He walked away from his business, personal sacrifice to himself to essentially serve his people. There's no benefit in it for him other than the salary that is inconsequential. And that salary often goes right back into helping people, because when people ask you to buy a cylinder of gas or help them with this or help them with a medical bill, whatever you have, you try and help. So for us, we are...
Why is his salary, and you give them $10,000 for constituency work, plus the 2,000, plus the 5,000 in a raise? And the Prime Minister knows that even before the election, they were paying monies, paying off bills, paying off debt for Andy in the South. Well, even before the election, before he became minister, they were paying off monies for Andy because his business went bankrupt from owing people. Even before. Owing suppliers locally and regionally millions of dollars during the campaign. Financiers of the NDC engaged in paying off suppliers that Andy owed. Donors in the Great South, where he was the candidate, were paying off debts to individuals and companies Andy owed. Just 5 months after the NDC took office, in June 2022, Andy was given $300,000 from the MSME program in the Grenada Development Bank. If he had his lucrative business, and as you say, he left that to come to serve, why were you paying off all these monies for him? Why did the board of directors give him $300,000 out of the MSME program that was there to revive small hoteliers? And when small hoteliers went to get loan, they tell them money done. But Andy Williams, who never had a small hotel, was able to get the highest amount, $300,000. Just so. Then 4 months later, received millions. He consolidated what was there that he wasn't paying, he wasn't servicing. That said bank turned him down on the 17th of June, 2022. Mere days before the elections, he got turned down the business for the loan. And right after the election, you could give him the same loan because the board is an NDC board. Andrew St. Bernard is the chairman of the board, right? So he now owed the Grenada Development Bank millions of dollars. He's still owing companies out there. And he left his business to go to serve. And Prime Minister knew that is not correct. He had people, one person who he was owing almost $200,000 had to go to the Prime Minister's office to retrieve her money. And when she got to the Prime Minister, said, "You took." That's just to say how many persons were showing up there. But he had to go and lie on Boss FM to say he left his good business. Which good business? Which good business? He was owing MyFi, the financial institution in downtown St. George's, another $300,000. They were getting ready to take him to court. And then the Grenada Development Bank paid them off as we speak, and he is still owing companies out there, many of whom he has written bounce checks to. In some cases, bounce check to cover bounce check. Now, this is a minister, sitting in our cabinet and a representative in our parliament. Bounce check is a crime on our books. Not too long ago, a young man from the private sector was sent to jail for writing bounce check. Nothing close to the amount that Andy Williams is owing out there. See for yourself. Here's the news clipping.
O'Neil Ryan Mighty was originally slapped with 10 counts of fraud and an 11th charge for the offense of money laundering. The matter involves the issuance of over $80,000 worth of bounced checks to a commercial bank in St. George's in September 2016. The matter was prosecuted by Crown Counsel in the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, Howard Pinnock, who accepted the guilty plea for the charges and did not offer evidence on the money laundering charge. Mighty has been remanded to the Richmond Hill prison until his sentencing, which is carded for October 26th.
So you see, but yet for all, when after the elections in 2023, in government cash finance outlets, this guy's name was on the list on the walls, where they put up the list where they say, do not accept checks from these people, our minister. How bad can it get? Well, we know it got worse with the bribery. We'll take care of that, right? We know it got worse. But this guy should not be in the parliament of our country. According to the Constitution, our supreme law, that no members of the House of Representatives shall have contract with the government of Grenada. So having a loan with the government of Grenada is a contract, right? And this is the Constitution. And it says here, no person, and well, let me read, it is disqualifications for membership of House of Representatives. No, and this is section 31. No person shall be qualified to be elected as a member of the House of Representatives if he is by virtue of his own act under any acknowledgement of allegiance, obedience, and adherence to a foreign power or state. B, that is subsection B, is an undischarged bankrupt, have been adjudged or otherwise declared bankrupt under any law in force in Grenada. Okay, so you may not have been declared bankrupt, but we're going down to E, subject to such exceptions and limitations as may be prescribed by Parliament, has any such interest in any such government contract as may be prescribed. Subsection 2, Parliament may provide that a person shall not be qualified to be elected as a member of the House of Representatives if he holds or is acting in any office that is specified by Parliament and the functions of which involve responsibility for or in connection with the conduct of any election to the House, Parliament, and the functions of which involves responsibility for or in connection with the conduct of any election to the House of the compilation of any register of voters for the purpose of such an election. Hello. Let me go down here quickly. Subsection 6. In paragraph E of subsection 1 of this section, government contract, and they're telling you what a government contract means any contract made with the government of Grenada or with a department of the government or with an officer of the government contracting as such, right? So folks, it's not only Andy in there that not supposed to be in the Parliament of Grenada, because there are others who had got loan from the Development Bank, and the agents, the CBI agents, it's a contract, and that is the Minister of Finance and the Prime Minister of Grenada have broken the laws. They should not have been, and that is on the electoral office, especially Andy Williams. Especially, this guy was under investigation when after the elections, they swept it under the rug. He had investigation for illegally accessing containers from the port. One of the masterminds is sitting in one of the highest positions in the office in office in Grenada, the cabinet secretary. She was removed from customs, found guilty. And you know what? The Prime Minister at the time, Prime Minister Mitchell, said when she was going to be fired, said, she young, give her another chance, put her in the ministry. Her alone. There are others too in the ministry. For removing containers from the port without paying duties. Yes, she was fired from customs for that. And Andy Williams was under investigation. As a matter of fact, Neelan Franklin, deceased, was the officer, one of the main officers in charge of that investigation. The plot thickened. The plot thickened. Folks, do you know, Prime Minister, that Andy Williams was being investigated? Do you know? He was being investigated by Customs and Excise Division for corruption and fraud regarding the movement of containers and goods off the port illegally. Do you know that? Now, after the NDC won elections, Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell was bombarded with calls and visits, as I told you, from businesses trying to retrieve their monies owing to them by Minister Andy Williams. Some of which Grenada Development Bank paid off. The Grenada Development Bank, run by the NDC Board of Directors, headed by Andrea St. Bernard as chairperson since 2022. Ms. St. Bernard is also the treasurer of the NDC, has been since 2022 as well. She is part of the Nation Builders package. NDCites, they are not NDCites. They are nation builders. If you remove the wool over your eyes, you all would see through them. Andrew St. Bernard is special envoy, ambassador to the Prime Minister and the government of Grenada in investment and development. She is advisor to the Prime Minister and the government of Grenada. So she's ambassador and she's an advisor. Don't get mixed up. And in the same investment and development. And a member of the first cabinet. You know there's a first cabinet, right? The 4 or 5 of them that meet and decide what's going to happen. And then they go and mama guide the rest of them. Or just say, well, this is what we're going to be doing. Ironically, she is a CBI agent selling passports by the dozens. She was in charge, and she would sell passport for people to wear with. She was in charge of the CES program, 10 million, and we are yet to get an update on that program and its success or non-success stories. She's she's on several boards, and part of the Prime Minister's entourage, his travel entourage. She is the so-called Project Polaris sponsor. Definitely the face of Project Polaris and de facto Minister for Health She's one of the 2 directors of the company Partners for Development Incorporated, the other director being Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, who owns 3 acres of land at the Calavini Estate in the Project Polaris area. She is superwoman. It's bounce check after bounce check. It's theft, it's bribery, it's fraud. So much so that Andy himself confessed that he could have been in jail.
I need help, Brother Andy Williams, who is the owner of Hotspot, and he'll now explain. I want him first to tell you his story, so at least this would be in context.
Thank you. Pleasant good morning to all. I want to ask Pastor Simon and Pastor Cornwall to come up, just come by me here for 1 minute. Let me come in the middle. Right, good. And I want 2 ladies here to stand, right? And they do not know that they have to stand here today. They have no clue. But I want to ask my mom to stand. Yeah, stand up, yeah. And I want to ask this young lady here to stand. Stand up. Now, someone asked me where did the idea of the starter pack came from. Let me just tell you, I have no original idea. Every idea that I have, I get it from someone. Right? People think that Andy is so brilliant and everything. I have no original idea. I always get an idea from someone. Now, 10 years ago, Brother Cornwall, I could have been in prison. Right? I lost my job. And this lady right here and my dad bailed me out.
Tell us, why did you lose your job again, sir? And that's not the only place you lost your job for the same reasons, right? I think you may run out of hotels to hire you after a while in the South. Folks, to be continued. This is a nice place to live. 10 years ago, you could have been in jail. That's a wrap on today's episode of Simon Says. It's always a pleasure conversing with you, keeping them honest. Thank you for viewing yet another episode of Simon Says, where facts come first. I'm your host, Jenny Simon. See you next week, same time, same place. Lots more to come.
Thank you for tuning in to Simon Says. To ensure that you never miss an episode, click subscribe and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell icon. See you at the next episode.